We have a very active spring setup over the next 5 days. We're going to break down the details for you in this update. Here is the setup going forward. We're watching this upper level low that left some quarter size hail yesterday in Gradeford, Texas, and then last night down there into the Houston Metroplex. That is continuing to move eastbound today into the overnight hours, traversing across the southeast, leaving a swath of heavy rain that will swing up the east coast, leaving another 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. We do have some flood watches in place. And then to the north, we've got some colder air, even some snow to talk about in towards Minneapolis. That actually swings through Wisconsin, back into Michigan, and that swings all the way into New England. And yet we have another stronger system that's lurking off the west coast. That promises to bring several rounds of severe storms and then even a major snowstorm as we head into Sunday and Monday. So I appreciate all my subscribers out there. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of the April, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily breakdowns. So let's break it down here. Here's the hazard map for today. You can follow along with the date in the upper right hand corner of the screen. We have winter weather advisories in place for those areas into Iowa, swinging through central Wisconsin today, back through Michigan. Even Detroit could pick up about 3 inches of snowfall later on today. That'll swing through upstate New York. And then we have renewed winter storm warnings up there in Vermont and New Hampshire, and in the state of Maine. They just get crushed up there. We could be upwards to 18 to 24 inches of snowfall. And there's those high wind watches actually in place for far west Texas into the Texas Panhandle, some 40, 50, maybe some gust upwards to 60 miles an hour. Fog advisories further south into the San Antonio region, but already new winter storm watches are in place with that more significant system that will likely unload across this region Sunday into Monday, with over a foot of snow. In some places could actually see 2 feet of snow. So there's a lot to talk about, but here's the first system. Not really concerned about severe weather today for the southeast. Definitely some heavier rainfall, and especially once you go through the southeast, coming up the east coast. And once you do that, we do actually have flood watches in place where they could be looking at some 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, especially the further along the coast you live. There's the snow later on today. They'll be swinging through Michigan and then eventually heading over to upstate New York and getting into Vermont and New Hampshire. And then as we go into the day tomorrow, that's where the setup's going to be. That's why they've got the flood watches in place along the East Coast. Easily 1 to 3 inches, if not more, in some of these spots. And this is the last thing they need because this ground is completely saturated. They've had so much rain all the way really through the winter months, and starting off spring so far has continued to be wet, and all that moisture content is still feeding into the northern side, and that's where they got those winter storm warnings in place. And the darker blues are going to be indicating some 2 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rates at times. It's going to be piling up in a big way, and some of those will likely end with some 18 to 24 inch totals. Is definitely not out of the question. But this bigger system is already lurking out west. This is up in the Pacific Northwest. That's the storm system that will be diving in, bringing a renewed rain threat to the west coast and a renewed snow threat to the Intermountain West. And eventually that's going to be a pretty potent trough that's going to be digging in, and that's going to be elevating the instability and an increase in the severe risk. So as we go into Sunday, here's the initial blast. We've got some colder air right now, but we're going to have a reinforcing shot coming into the picture on Sunday as that continues to dive southbound, but further to the north, out ahead of that trough and that more significant cold blast. We're going to be starting to watch these temperatures really start to warm, and as they do, that's why we do have a severe risk, especially as this more bona fide significant trough ejection comes out off the west coast. This trough really starts to dig really all the way into the Baja, and you can see the powerful jet streaks on the southern side. And where that low pressure is, the triple points is where the instability really has unloaded over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen again with this system as it continues to dive in, tapping into some of that moisture content and the instability at the surface. We could be looking at severe storms as we head into Sunday. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center does in fact highlight that risk where the low pressure is likely will be over areas of eastern portions of Colorado, as well as in towards the Texas Panhandle. And just to the right of there, that's where we have the instability within the warm sector. That's where we could be looking at a squall line further south into Texas, but a more bona fide threat for severe storms into Oklahoma, and especially there in Kansas, as north of there will be all snow, and sometimes heavy snow will start to unload. Here's the high temperatures for Sunday. So you can see where the warm sector is out before that cold front. Those 70s creep all the way up into the Panhandle, actually into Oklahoma, trying to reach all the way into Kansas, and it even tries to reach into Nebraska with those 70-degree high temperatures. There's that temperature gradient. It'll be a sharp temperature gradient because this is a very strong spring cold blast that will be coming into the picture. These are high temperatures, folks, well into the 20s there, with heavy snow will be falling during the day on Sunday through Montana, back into the Dakotas, as well as into Minnesota. And we could actually even see freezing rain down there into portions of Iowa, as well as into southeastern areas of South Dakota as well. So if we look at this setup, there's that more significant low pressure down to a potentially 982 millibar low pressure with this squall line further south, likely mainly a gustier wind threat. But further to the north in Oklahoma, we got to be concerned with more significant hail threat, and some isolated tornadoes is definitely not out of the question. And especially as you go further north into Kansas, I think that's where they could actually unload a possible enhanced risk for severe storms. But it's all about the snow as you go through the mountain ranges as well as into Denver. They'll be getting more snow with this setup, but especially as this continues to lift northeast, look at those tight isobars. The winds are going to be cranking. We could be looking at some blizzard-like conditions, folks, in some of those areas in northern Nebraska, as well as in the Dakotas, and heading up into North Dakota and swinging in through central Minnesota, where they could get clocked from this system, as very heavy snow could unload right around that convergence zone of some, again, 2 to 3 inches per hour snowfall rates is definitely not out of the question in some of those higher gradients. But we got to deal with some instability further south. And right now, it definitely appears that the Storm Prediction Center could actually up the ante with this storm and upgrade it to an enhanced risk by the time this does come to fruition, because we do look for an enhanced hail threat with this system, especially through Oklahoma. But there's the bullseye right there in Kansas, in central Kansas. Would warrant an enhanced risk, as well as isolated tornadoes is definitely not out of the question with this setup during the day on Sunday into Sunday night. And there's the winds, right? These winds are going to be cranking up there in the Texas Panhandle. In fact, they got a renewed fire weather watch unloads this afternoon into tomorrow. So there's areas into eastern New Mexico and to far west Texas, into the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, back into Kansas, back in Nebraska. Yeah, easily some 40, 50 mile, even some gusts of upwards to 60 miles an hour. And then further north up in the Dakotas through Minnesota, yes, that could be some blizzard-like conditions at times. You only really need 35 mile per hour at 3 hours in a row qualify for a blizzard, and I think you get that easily with this system as we head into Sunday and Monday. But there's the low pressure even on the ensemble guidance as this continues to lift up to the northeast. Likely will be somewhere around the vicinity of northeastern Iowa by the time we head into Monday afternoon. And then further to the south, wow, we're going to have a lot of moisture content to be working with this particular setup, because this is a pretty significant low pressure, really deepens And back behind it, we've got a pretty cold blast of colder air. You're going to feel this in a big way. So right now, these short range guidances, and even this one just updated, this is the SREF. This is the short range mesoscale guidance of all the short range models. And the blend, this is a blended view showing that pink swath. That's over a foot of snow, folks. And some of those could be looking at some 2 feet amounts. And yes, there's the bullseye where they do have the winter storm warnings in place right now. And to Vermont, New Hampshire, and especially there in the Maine, definitely not out of the question to see some 18 to 24 inch totals. And then further back into Wisconsin, as well as into the bullseye area in Minnesota, as well as into the Dakotas. Yeah, somewhere in the vicinity of 2 feet of snow in some of those higher amounts. And right now, this model's printing out a 30-inch total somewhere within this vicinity. If that comes to fruition, I'm not sure, minus elevation, I don't think we've seen a 30-inch total this year. I've seen a 26. I know we've seen 26, but I don't think we've gotten 30 inches and for the entire winter, minus out elevation. So, but here's the setup for Monday, because we're going to have a lot of moisture content coming in. It's almost off the chart. This water vapor, transport index only goes up to 1500, and we're cranking right at about 1470. So that tells you that's a lot of high water vapor associated with it, and extremely heavy rainfall, and they're going to be definitely up in the ante with this severe threat as well. And that moisture content lifts all the way into Missouri as well as into Illinois, and actually reaches even into Wisconsin. That's where the temperatures are going to be higher as well, and some of that the higher dew points. And then there's the low pressure right there into northwestern portions of Iowa. But right now, this is the day 4 risk. This is what the actual Storm Prediction Center has right now through Louisiana with that slight risk for severe storms. Here's what the actual learning model has, kind of copying where the moisture content is feeding all the way up into Wisconsin. So don't be surprised. This will be, elongated, out ahead of this system, and this could be more of definitely a more significant severe weather threat heading into Monday, really for all 3 modes of severe storms within the warm sector. Because you can see by Monday afternoon, you can see these temperature gradients, right? It's pretty extreme. You got 70s, 60s, and those 60s surge all the way to Wisconsin, and that back behind it, you're going to be feeling that. I mean, a wind chill of 4 degrees in the Dakotas into Monday afternoon. So that is going to be a strong spring cold front for sure, as you're going to be feeling this in a big way. And those are actually, in the middle of the afternoon as well. And so by Tuesday, I think things are still somewhat severe further south, not as intense as you're going to be getting on Sunday and into Monday. I think things do start to lighten up a little bit, but not on the rain front. I think you still get very heavy rain through Mississippi, back into Georgia, back into Alabama, and then eventually that will swing into Georgia, and the snow will continue to fly, and it'll start to try to wind down. So it snows all day Sunday, really most of the day on Sunday and Monday, and then even by Tuesday morning, you're still lurking with the backside of the system with some light to moderate snow on the backside. So that's where we can come up with some of those 2-foot totals. Is definitely not out of the question. And I think definitely by Wednesday, the severe threat will be pretty much non-existent as it really starts to break up, and as the low pressure center will continue to lift up north into Canada, and then we just get more of a broken squall line, if you will, more, just some marginally gusty winds and some heavier rains, and again, more heavy rains for the East Coast as well. But look again, right? We got yet another system that will be lurking off the West Coast by the Wednesday, the March the 27th. And that system's going to bring even another shot of colder air and another shot of heavy snow back into the Montana, into Wyoming, through Colorado. That will swing through Nebraska as well, through the Dakotas, back through Iowa, into Minnesota again, and into Wisconsin. So you're going to get another shot, even after this 2-foot dumping that you're going to get on Sunday and Monday. there's another shot by the end of the month could unload another heavy snow swath up north. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.